Valhalla is one of the world's top hunter training institutes. Every year, a crazy number of hunters apply to carry its prestigious name on their backs. Yet, the admission rate is only 1 to 500. And even among those who make it, the number of cadets that actually graduate are less than 150. The competition starts on the day of the orientation. We then see a bunch of students sparring in small confined spaces. And watching over them is Sankyeol Lee, who is Valhalla's chief combat instructor. Suddenly, someone arrives, commenting on how there are a lot of applicants this year as well, and he is the son of Dongua clan, Minjunyu. Sankyeol replies that this test is what is going to determine their entrance rank, so there is going to be a lot of students, and asks if he is here to see his niece. Minjun replies, of course, and their Dongua clan has high expectation for Soyeon. Sankyeol remembers her, Soyeon, the prodigy from the Dongua clan, one of the 5 great clans of South Korea. At the age of 10, she was already wielding mana at the level of a high schooler, and by 13, she was able to infuse her mana into her sword. By 16, in a sparring match against the hunters of the Dongua clan, she achieved a total victory. And this is all that is written on her record, and asks Minjun if there is anything else. Minjun replies, would he believe it if he told him that she can communicate with the clan's guardian constellation? In shock, Sankyeol asks if it's true, and Minjun replies, it is, which is why they naturally expect great things from her. The reason for the great 5 clans of Korea is because of the guardian constellations associated with each one. Normally, a hunter receives a blessing from a guardian constellation or enters a contract with them, but the guardian constellation of the great clans are different in terms of quality compared to others. The Dongua clan's Sword God, the Mountain Jang clan's Phantom Spear, the Truth Choi clan's Blade King, the Early O clan's Fist King, and the Peak-do clan's Bow God. The members of the 5 great clans received the blessings of these constellations and were granted outstanding talent and abilities. But there is a difference between just receiving the blessing and actually communicating with them, because communicating with them would mean a direct contract with it. Which makes Sankyeol call her a prodigy out loud, a notion that Minjun agrees with. He then asks, where is she anyways? And Sankyeol replies that her match haven't started yet, and looking at it now, it is going to start in 30 seconds, so Minjun asks if he could let him watch. But Sankyeol tells him to go down if he wants to watch. He replies he would have to fight all those scouters and reporters down there, and requests him to bring it up on a screen as a senior, and Sankyeol replies that only now he is a senior. But regardless, he decides to do it, since he was curious himself as well. We finally get a look at our MC, whose name is Juhyuk Kim, 17 years old, and is currently facing Soyeon. Sankyeol notes that Johyun seems quite relaxed, and Minjun comments that he probably gave up after finding out he was up against Soyeon, because she is quite well known. Sankyeol comments that even then, he doesn't seem to have any fighting spirit at all, and Minjun simply smiles, stating that it would be over soon. Sankyeol comments that even then, he doesn't seem to have any fighting spirit at all, and Minjun simply smiles, stating that it would be over soon. And as soon as it ends, Soyeon rushes at him to attack. She infuses mana into her sword and sends a flying slash towards Juhyuk. Seeing her ability, Sankyeol thinks that she has such clean swordsmanship at such a young age, and her mana control is impressive as well. And as the sword slash gets right up to his face, Juhyuk simply smirks. We then hear a loud bang, and both Sankyeol and Minjun, along with the crowd, are seen completely shocked. As we see, Juhyuk has one-shot Soyeon easily, and seems quite disappointed that everyone is so weak, questioning if this is really 300 years in the future. We go back in time to 300 years ago, at the Tower of the End. Juhyuk seems to be quite injured, as he is fighting against the Tower Master of the Tower of the End, Varche, who calls his fight with Juhyuk marvelous. But Juhyuk seems to be quite annoyed, and kicks him right on his head, blowing it off, calling him dumbass for finding it marvelous. As Varche is dead, Juhyuk starts panting heavily from being tired. He then gets a notification that with the defeat of the Tower Master, the destruction of the world has been stopped. And like that, the whole tower starts to rumble, and Juhyuk wonders if the tower is collapsing because he killed the Tower Master. Suddenly, he gets a sharp pain on his wound, as he thinks that it's all happening just when he thought that he would have a comfortable life. He has been through hell and back, working as a hunter since he was young, and just when he saved up some money, and started getting some recognition, this happens. And it also makes him question if he should have brought his disciples along with him. But quickly decides against it, because Varche was quite strong, and if they tagged along with him, they would have definitely all died. As the rumbling gets heavy, Juhyok finally dies as a huge rock falls on his head. He then woke up. Hyun-Oh Kim reincarnated in the body of the 17-year-old Juhyok Kim. It was 300 years after the collapse of the tower. But regardless, he was quite satisfied with his reincarnation. While his new body was weak and young, he retained all of his knowledge from the time he was called the martial god. If he could adapt to this body, he believed that he would be able to live a life of luxury. That is, until the window appeared, which once again informs him that Tower of End will appear in 5 years, so he should prepare for it. Juhyok gets quite angry with this, wondering if this window has some kind of grudge against him, thinking that he should have just thrown Varche in the lava, but realizes that it's not used and regretting it now. So, he decides that this time, he will stop the tower once and for all, and live his life in luxury and leisure from then on. Suddenly, another window appears in front of him, telling him to retrieve his weapon and memories from the Valhalla chambers of constellations. He does realize what it means by weapons, but he doesn't get what it means by memories. But regardless, he decides to find this Valhalla. Back to the present, day 4 of the top 10 selection matches. The announcer tells everyone who has matches to proceed to the arena. And so, Juhyok gets up and goes on for his match. The crowd cheers, and Sankyol notes that there are even more spectators than before, which is because all of the members of 5 great clans are present here. And also that freshman, Juhyok Kim. And his opponent is eldest son of the O clan, Sehyako. Looking at Juhyok, Sehyok wonders if he is the one who took down Soyeon, though he doesn't look anything special to him. But regardless, he smirks, thinking that if he takes him down, people will surely get to know his name. He calls out Juhyok, telling him that he will QD him. Juhyok doesn't understand and asks what he means, and he replies that it means quickly destroy. And so, Juhyok replies with GD Chell, something that Sehyok doesn't understand, and asks, what? And Juhyok replies that it means go to hell, while giving him a middle finger and calling him a loser. The eldest son of the O clan, he was not inclined towards strategy, martial arts, or academics. But he did possess an extraordinary talent, which was his body. Action that needed mana to perform. He could do it effortlessly through sheer strength. Even with just little training, his body became considerably stronger. It was kind of physical talent that one had to be born with. With this, Sehyok earned the title of being a prodigy. Back to the fight, Sehyok gets pissed from Juhyok's taunts and angrily rushes at him to attack. Juhyok notes that he don't stand a chance in physical fight with his current body, acknowledging that his strength is the real deal. But he also knows that just having superior physical abilities is not everything in a fight. One would need to have knowledge of martial arts to back up those physical abilities as well. And so we see Juhyok easily dodging the punch and swiping on Sehyok's leg, making him lose balance. And while he prepares his palm to attack, he calls out that one also needs the ability to observe their opponent. And the strike is aimed right on his gut, making him cough blood and get down in a single hit. And so, Juhyok notes that this is what happens when those two things aren't in harmony. And while he may be weaker in this body than he used to originally, he believes that he won't have any trouble hunting monsters and doing his job as a hunter still. And as he walks back, we see people were watching him fight. They couldn't notice what he did, and assumed that Sehyok tripped over his own feet, and they didn't expected Sehyok to fall over from simple attack like that. But a person behind them, who is the head of early O clan, Keel Shino, calls them all fool for calling it a simple trick. He knows that even though his son never cared to train in martial arts, he can still easily dodge punches from his peers. But the last one was an unavoidable blow. He fell for Juhyok's taunt and rushed in, and even used mana, which he usually never does, aiming to finish the fight quickly. But in that moment, Juhyok dodged his punch with a simple head tilt. But since Sehyok thought that his punch would hit, his center of balance shifted forward due to the force of his own punch, and caused all that. And it all means that Juhyok was one step faster than Sehyok could even think or see. The moment he rushed in, Juhyok already knew how he will end the fight, which makes him call Juhyok a monstrous talent. And when he glances to the side, he notices that unfortunately, some of them has recognized his talent. And this makes him determined to bring Juhyok into his clan no matter what. We now fast forward to people screaming for Aaron Choi and declaring their love for her. All of this annoys Juhyuk, as he comments that they are a little too old to be declaring their love for a 17-year-old. And with this, we see the final match of the ranking competition begins between the second daughter of the Truth Choi clan, Aaron Choi, and Juhyuk Kim. But even after the countdown ends, she simply stands and does not attack Juhyuk, making him think that she is waiting for him to make a move first, and since she is trying to at least read the situation, he calls her better than the rest. And so, he smirks and starts walking towards her with both hands in his pockets. And as he starts to get close, she clutches her sword tightly, and we see sparks of lightning form around it. Everyone is quite shocked seeing her already mastering the attribute transformation of her clan, and find all the descendants of the 5 great clans who attended the ceremony amazing. Back to the fight, as Juhyuk gets close enough, she decides her moment to attack. But when she draws and swings her sword, she finds him gone. Meanwhile, we see Juhyuk standing on her side, telling her that it's easy to dodge when she is showing him where she is going to attack with her eyes. And as she turns around, Juhyuk lands a strike, though she seems to have blocked it with her sword, and gets pushed back quite a bit, making Juhyuk also realize that she was able to block it with her sword, which is why it felt different when he hit her. Meanwhile, Aaron is trembling from that attack she blocked, noting that Juhyuk is incredibly powerful. And this time, before she can react, Juhyuk has already closed the distance and taps on her sword, and tells her try blocking this attack, as we see his punch completely bypassing the sword. And with this, she also falls in a single strike. And Juhyuk notes that her sword technique looked oddly familiar to him, although the stance was slightly different. But regardless, he decides to leave it at that and walks away. And with this, we see him ranking first on the entrance test above all the descendants. And when he is walking outside, he suddenly gets swarmed by a bunch of reporters and scouts. They all try to recruit him to their guild and whatnot, which annoys him, and so he tells them all to piss off. His behavior soon enough lands him on the news and internet, with many comments talking about him. Now back to Valhalla. He seems to be standing in the opening ceremony. And as there is a speech going on, he yawns from being bored, and notices that someone behind him is glancing at him. But when he looks back, the guy quickly turns his gaze away, making Juhyuk wonder if he stood out too much yesterday. But anyways, he remembers getting a message to recover his weapons and memories from the Valhalla Chamber of Constellations. And so, he only plans to get his stuff and leave Valhalla, and there is something there that he himself wants to check as well, as he quickly leaves soon after the ceremony ends. Now at the virtual combat training room, we are introduced to the instructor, Eigen Kim, who is bummed out about being stuck teaching this class, because it apparently got the famous descendants, Soyeonyu, Aaron Choi, Sihyako. He is freaking out about the fact that 3 of the 5 major clans are in his class, despite the class assignment being random. And to make things even worse, he got Juhyuk Kim as well. And so, this makes him believe that this year is ruined, but regardless, he decides to act strong in this situation. He quickly introduces himself to the class and greets them, and suddenly presses a button, which seemingly changes the environment around them to open field, as the students are surprised. They all wonder what happened, since they were just indoors right now. Eigen then clutches his sword, warning everyone about showing aggression here, as their class gets surrounded by monsters. Everyone gets quite scared seeing this, with Sihyok noting that there are at least 100 of these monsters here. But when the monsters tries to attack them, they get stopped by a barrier in place. And Eigen smiles, knowing that the barrier is working quite well. He then calls out Juhyuk in front of the class, and asks if he can handle all those monsters by himself. Juhyuk confirms if he is talking about the monsters rushing here right now, which Eigen affirms. Juhyuk seems to be in thoughts, while Eigen smirks, assuming that he will be scared since most of the students have only seen a monster in book, and that he will know his place as well. He believes that he will say no soon enough, and when he does, he will start the class after putting him down. But Juhyuk smirks instead, pissing of Eigen, as he asks, "What's so funny?" and asks if he could assume that he can, based on how he is laughing, and Juhyuk agrees. Eigen gets even more pissed, thinking that Juhyuk is showing off, and asks him to give a try. But Juhyuk asks what would he get out of it, since there was never a mention of doing something like this on the first day, and since the test is sudden, he wants a reward for it. Eigen confirms if he wants a prize, and Juhyuk asks What would he give him if he cuts down all the monsters here? In anger, Eigen says that he will grant him one thing he wants, as long as it's in his authority, and Juhyok smiles hearing that. And he accepts the deal, not without calling it lacking though. And as Eigen is trying to warn him that monsters are almost real, Juhyok simply ignores and asks him for a sword. Eigen seems confused, and Juhyok says he cannot fight without a weapon, or if he is asking him to fight barehanded. Eigen scoffs and hands him over his sword. And right after inspecting the sword, the barrier opens for him to go out. Eigen watches him with annoyance, while other students seems quite anxious. And right after going out of the barrier, Juhyok grins like a maniac and starts slaughtering the monsters. Juhyok smirks and with a single slash cuts down many of the monsters at once. Some monsters try to attack him from behind, but he stabs them by reversing the grip. He remembers that it's been 300 years since he last held a sword and calls himself not bad with it still. Back then, it used to be much more chaotic, so he used whatever weapon he could find. But he still does consider himself good with a sword. And as one of the monsters is trying to attack him from behind, he easily dodges his strike. And it's just as he thought, their attacks patterns are really simple, remembering how the instructor says that they were system-made, so he considered them simply well-made fakes. Seeing him fight like this, Eigen seemed shocked, as even the weapon that he gave him was just a cheap sword. It does not have any mana imbued in it, or he have a swift swordplay, yet it's slicing through the monsters like a butter, almost as if the sword is swallowing up the monsters. Seeing this, Soyeon seems disdain, and Sihyok is unable to believe, while Eren seems enamored. As he finishes up, he puts the sword back, stating that he wants to go down to the Chamber of Constellations, telling Eigen he would be keeping his promise, right? Fast forward to evening, Eigen finishes up the classes, telling all the students to head straight to their dorms. Juhyok seems incredibly exhausted due to the long classes, thinking to quickly get his stuff and get out of here. Back then, he never actually went to school, but only passed on to his disciples what he knew. While walking back, even though the classes were boring, he got some information from it, especially about the constellations. There was no such thing as constellations back in his time. And if he were to sum it up, it's a term for those who were transformed into a god for their achievements. Most of the constellation make contract, in which the hunter become their divine artifact, and the hunters receive special power in return. And Korea's Valhalla Academy has the third largest number of divine artifact in the world. This was the only useful thing he got. The lecture about swordplay and monsters were useless to him. And he now decides to head back quickly and start up with his martial arts training, since his current body is insanely weak. Suddenly, Eren arrives and calls him out from behind. We now switch scenes to the staff room, where Sankyol calls his Eigen's experience quite rough, but he calls it more of an embarrassment. Logically, it doesn't make sense to him, and asks if Juhyok is really a high school student. He spawned 120 monsters, yet he killed all of them, hearing which surprised Sankyol, as he is a student who has not even encountered a monster yet. Sankyol says, while it's strange, there was nothing special about his record from what he saw, and Eigen asks if he doesn't have any special background, and Sankyol replies, nothing that he know of. But he knows that he is an orphan, and came from an unremarkable orphanage in a highly dangerous area. Eigen suspect that he might have forged his ID, but Sankyol has looked into that as well, but it wasn't forged. And even if it was, then why would he go through such trouble to enter Valhalla, and then make a scene at the entrance? Sankyol then inquires about his request to enter the Constellation Chamber, and says that he will be allowed in if he makes it past the first semester either ways. So if he requests from the director, he would be granted access to the first basement floor, and Eigen thanks him for that. Sankyol replies, since he is the one who brought Eigen here, he should have that much responsibility. And besides, only the fifth basement floor is a restricted area. The first basement floor can be accessed by anyone. It wouldn't be a problem if he entered a bit early. Eigen voices his concern for the upcoming year, and Sankyol asks if it's due to Juhyok. Eigen replies, he is one of the reason, but besides him, there are the kids of 5 major clans, and he already finds it hard to keep one under control. Sankyol replies, he might hear better hearing, that there is a exchange student from Bintrick clan next door, hearing which shocks Eigen. Sankyol confirms that he is the cousin of the Bintrick family, Rockdal Bintrick. He was apparently expelled from a private academy in UK for causing trouble. And so he gets a bit relieved, saying that his situation doesn't seem too bad in comparison. Back to Juhyuk and Aaron, who asks her, what does she want? And she replies and asks him to teach her swordplay. Juhyuk seems confused by this, and Aaron asks her to teach her the way he fought earlier. But Juhyuk straight up refuses, and she asks for his reason. And he replies, he just don't want to, and tries to leave quickly. But she again repeats the same thing, and he again refuses her, this time getting a bit annoyed, and asks if she cannot take no for an answer, and tells her to stop bothering him. And finally, says that he has no interest in teaching her, so she can get lost, and leaves with that. Now next day at school, Juhyuk seems to be chilling on his desk. He looks over at his hand, and thinks that while he did not expected much, this body is worse than he thought. There is no chance of doing martial arts training right now. He cannot do anything since he barely has any mana, and to make it worse, he cannot even control that little mana he has. But he thinks that at least his mana problem can be solved once he finds that, and for that, he needs to be prepared to use at least a little bit of mana. Suddenly, some blondie arrives and calls Juhyuk out. And it's Roktal Bintrick, branch family of the Bintrick family, and his attendant, Yuria de Palais. Juhyuk asks for his identity, and Roktal gets annoyed and thinks of him as an uneducated fool since he doesn't know which family he is from. And so, Roktal introduces himself and decides to cut to chase, asking Juhyuk if he wants power. In most clans, it's difficult to come into power if one is not from the main family. But, with Beak Mask as their guardian constellation, the Bintrick family was different. Normally, constellations that are S-class or higher select individuals based on their own criteria and bestow their power accordingly. But in the Bintrick clan, the members chose who to make contract with themselves, and the constellation grants its blessing to the selected person without dissent. Because of their unique method, they gained power in Europe, and since they selected their contractors regardless of direct lineage, even minor branches can hold as much power as the main family. And Roktal, who had that power backing him, became arrogant. But not too long ago, he caused some trouble at the academy in England, and so he was kicked out from the family and lost their favor. But he still believed that it's okay, since even if things turned out like this, he still got what he wanted. As he looks over to Yuria, he thinks that he can return if he can do great things for the Bintrick name, something that even she would be satisfied with. And for the first thing, he plans to bring Juhyuk into his circle of influence. But before he can even give him an offer, Juhyuk asks, what the hell is he on about? Hearing which annoys Roktal and makes Yuria nervous. Roktal again asks, what did he say? And Juhyuk asks if he cannot tell that he is not interested, even though he made it so obvious. And yet he still decided to talk to him, and calls him not so observant. Roktal starts to get angry, but before he can do anything, someone calls him out and orders him to go back to his class. He angrily lashes out, asking who is daring to order him, and upon seeing it Sankiol, he gets quiet. Who tells him to behave, no matter if he is from Bintrick family, he has to obey the instructors here. And so, he gets angry, and stomps off. But on the way out, he threatens Juhyuk that they will meet again. Now fast forward, as Juhyuk is walking back, he thinks that he got nothing today as well, as he has not even entered the constellation chamber yet, but gotten involved in some weird thing. And since the guilds and scouts cannot enter school, they are trying to get him through students and instructors. And suddenly, Aaron once again arrives and asks Juhyuk to teach her swordplay. Seeing whom, Juhyuk gets annoyed. Now at Valhalla Dormitory, VIP room. We see Roktal taking out his rage by breaking stuff around his room. He is incredibly pissed at Juhyuk for humiliating him, and asks Yuria to get in touch with Dezera and tell him that there is someone that needs to be dealt with. Yuria doesn't seem to listen, and so Roktal gets angry and pulls her by her hair, and asks her to answer to him, and telling her to not think that she is still the eldest daughter of the Palais clan, and threatens to throw her out of their clan right now, which scares her. And so, he throws her on the ground and orders her to call Dezera and tell him that there is somebody that needs to be dealt with. And also orders her to tell the boy from Sunrise Clan in the second year that he wants to see him. Now at Valhalla Dormitory, at Juhyuk's room, we see him accumulating mana. And after a bit, he finishes up and takes a large breath, and calls his current body really worthless as he cannot even focus mana. He then thinks back to his meeting with Aaron Choi, as apparently she kept following him around. But Juhyuk finally stops and asks what is up with her, and tell her that they are already in front of the dorms, so will she follow him to his room. But once again, she asks him to teach her swordplay, and Juyeok asks if she is a broken record to be repeating the same thing. Noting that she is really stubborn, and that now he has to use force to make her leave him alone, he asks her for 10 million won, quoting it as the price for his lesson. She thinks for a bit, and Juyeok starts to leave, telling her, "It's too expensive, isn't it?" But she suddenly asks for his phone, and Juyeok is confused about it. But he still hands it over, asking, what is she asking it for? And she replies, if she gives him her number, it would be easier to send him the money. He is quite confused at first, but is shocked when he looks at a 100 million won transaction on his phone. She asks, now will he teach her, but he declines and denies the transfer. Back to the present, he was quite surprised and wonders, how could a student send 100 million without a second thought? And he would have to teach her properly if he were to take her in as a student, which is why he asked for so much. But it doesn't matter, because once he finds that, money won't be an issue for him anyways, and neither will the fact that his mana is so low. He then dresses up with shovels and shit to go and find his secret warehouse. From what he checked before coming to this school, most of the secret warehouse he hid 300 years ago were destroyed. And according to his investigation, there should be at least 4 around here, but only 3 of them are likely to remain. And most likely among those are in the mountain of Valhalla. And so, he starts searching for it using his ability. He knows that he can detect the location of his secret warehouse using a marble that reacts to his mana. This way, he won't need to use much mana to find it. And we see a spot starts to glow on the ground, which is the marble. He quickly goes on to the spot and starts digging, but not without nagging about his weak-ass body. And if he knew that his body was going to be this bad, he would have never buried it so deep. And if it weren't for the Tower of the Inn 300 years ago, he wouldn't have to make it either. The world was on the verge of destruction, and there was no place for his belongings, so he created a secret warehouse and crammed all of his stuff inside. And he hopes that everything inside is fine still. Now it starts to get morning, and he is finally done with the digging. As we see the glowing spot on the ground, and Juyeok notes that the keyhole should be around here somewhere as well. And he finally finds it, and remembers that regular keys don't fit in this hole. So, one has to take the clump of thread like mana and twist it into the shape of a key. And so, he finally puts the key in and turns it. The door opens. The light shines inside, and he jumps down into the warehouse. And we see the warehouse is full of gold, and as it shines brightly on his face, while he comments, "How are you, my babies?" And with this, he believes that he won't have to worry about money. And he also finds another thing that he was looking for, storage stones. He apparently stored mana in these to maintain the secret warehouse, but he never thought that he would be using it himself. And as he picks one up, he starts absorbing the mana from it, and feels that he is practically overflowing with mana. And now, he decides to take the stones with him, and the lighter gems, instead of the heavy gold bars. Now fast forward to morning, we see Juyeok sitting in the class, completely exhausted. Thinking that he should not have buried the secret warehouse so deep, just digging it up was enough to make his body sore. Suddenly, Erin arrives once again, asking Juyeok to teach her swordplay. And he replies that she is really not going to let go. And from what he looked after he reincarnated, Erin Choi clan, the Truth Choi clan, is the most skilled in swordplay among the 5 clans, which makes him wonder, why is she asking him? And he asks the same thing to her, saying that she can just learn from someone in her clan. But she still insists on learning from him, and he asks, why? She replies that she has not seen anyone who wields a blade better than him. He asks, what about her father? And he must be the head of the Truth Choi clan. He should be better than him. And as she is about to say something, they get interrupted by Aigen, who asks Juyeok to come to the office. Juyeok questions, what for? And he replies, it's about the thing that he asked last time. Wouldn't he like to know? And Juyeok quickly gets up and starts to leave. She tries to stop him, but lets it go this time, and seems to get a bit sad. But Juyeok tells her to meet him at the training grounds at 6 a.m. tomorrow. She gets a bit surprised, and Juyeok asks, does she now want to? But she quickly agrees to do so. Now at the teacher's office, Aigen tells him that he has to go soon, so he will be brief with it. He informs Juyeok that his request to access the Constellation Chamber has been approved, but it's only up to the first basement floor, and his access will be restricted past that point, and Juyeok agrees for that, and asks, when can he go? Aigen replies, they can go tonight if he wants to, and he decides to at that time as well. But Eigen is surprised that Juiok agreed like that, because he thought he would make a fuss about not getting full access to the place. And so, he tells Juiok that it's all, and he leaves. Now at night, they arrive at the place, and Eigen tells him that this is the Chamber of Constellation at Valhalla. Juiok looks around and sees a bunch of guards standing, saying that the security looks tighter here than at the main gate, and Eigen replies, "This is how important the Chamber of Constellation is. It's valuable enough to make Valhalla one of the top 3 academies." Juiok thinks that even apart from the guards, the outer walls are all covered with all sorts of magic circles. It's completely covered except for the entrance. Juiok tells Eigen if he can ask him a question, and he replies to go on, and Juiok asks, what would happen if he were to go the second basement floor? Would that make him a criminal? Eigen replies, he wouldn't be a criminal, but Valhalla will hold him responsible and expel him. And even before that, he would have a mental breakdown before they can even kick him out. The man on the second floor is really powerful, so if he were to come into contact with it, his mind will fragment and he would lose his grasp of reality. And Juiok simply smiles and replies, understood, though it concerns Eigen as he wonders, why is he asking all that right before going in, and if he is really planning on going to the second basement floor? But he doesn't consider it a possibility, as a kid who placed first in exam wouldn't do that. He is sure that Juiok knows it's better to stay in the academy. And as he is going in, he tells Juiok that he got 30 minutes. He has to come back in that time. Now inside, he again pulls up that notification, thinking that he don't care if he get expelled, since this is what he came here for. And first, he decides to go to the third basement floor, and finds there to be a lot of stairs in this building, and he has not even seen a single room yet either. And as he arrives at some place, he wonders if it's some kind of prison with many vaults. He heard before that Constellation Chamber started on the first basement floor, and wonders if this is it, though it doesn't look like it has anything to do with him, which makes him plan to go further down. Suddenly, he gets a notification that he has met the requirements, and that he will be transported to the room, something which he don't understand. Suddenly, he starts to get transported, and someone says, "Long time no see, Hyun-oh Kim." And the person turns out to be Varric, seeing whom Juiok is quite surprised. And right as Varche is about to greet him, he gets punched right on the face. And Juiok angrily beats him down, shouting that he got some nerve showing up his face here. Varche tries to tell him to wait, but Juiok doesn't listen and continues beating him. He once again tries to tell him to calm down, but once again Juiok punches him, telling him to die. And after a bit, Juiok beats him up enough that he starts panting from being tired. He tells Varche that he usually don't lead with his fists, but it's different for him, because he ruined his dreams and comfortable future. He took everything away, his wealth, his honor, the time he spent training his disciples, and Varche requests him to hold on while being beaten up, asking Juiok if he is not curious as to what this place is, which finally makes him pause, which he is curious about and asks, and Varche replies that it's the mental realm. But Juiok doesn't get what he means, and Varche replies, to be more precise, it's more like a space within a divine artifact. And even the appearance of Varche right now is just a manifestation in the mental realm, as his physical body was destroyed 300 years ago. Juiok asks if what he is saying that he has always been in this artifact, and Varche agrees. And so Juiok replies, if it means that, and Varche grins, saying that what he is thinking is right. He has become a constellation. But Juiok doesn't seem much impressed by it, and once again punches him, calling him annoying. We switch scenes to Eigen, who seems to nervously waiting outside for Juiok. Finally, the door opens, and Juiok arrives with the guards performing a check on him. Eigen asks if he didn't do anything funny, and he replies he didn't, but only looked around. And he couldn't go further down either ways, since his mind would break, like he said. And with that, Eigen tells him to back to his room, which he does. While walking back, he remembers his conversation with Varche. Juiok told Varche that he don't care if he became a constellation, and asks him to explain something to him. He asks, isn't he the one who is making these window pop-ups, and what are they about? But Varche replies that he don't know. Juiok gets pissed, and again tries to hit him, but Varche replies that he really don't know about this, as ever since Juiok killed him, he has been inside this thing for 300 years without any power. Hearing this, Juiok lets him go and asks who is behind it, and Varche replies that he got a notification as well, and he was told to get in touch with the reincarnated Hyen O Kim and reclaim his memories. But thanks to which, he might know who is behind it. He thinks that it might be the one who made him the master of the Tower of the End. Juiok asks for that person's identity, and Varche replies, he don't know exactly as all of his memories related to that are gone, and they seemingly don't come back all at once. He then asks Juiok about his notification, and he replies, it was about to reclaim his weapons and memories, but he wasn't able to read anything below because it was censored. Though he don't think he has any missing memories, and he still remembers everything that happened at the tower that day. Varche replies that he might not be aware of any missing memories, since he has already found the weapon. The memories will come back naturally as well. But Juiok is confused about which weapon did he found, and Varche replies that this space is the inner realm of Juiok's weapon, the Sword of Enlightenment, and that he became a constellation because he used his sword as a divine artifact, which pisses Juiok off, as he angrily yells at him. Back to the present, Juiok calls all of this a messed up situation. He wanted to destroy the weapon and leave it behind. But no matter how weak he is, Varche was still called the End King, and he don't want to leave him unattended, and the notification window also told him that he would need his sword to fulfill his new objective, though. He don't recall his sword having a storage feature. Suddenly, someone calls him from behind, confirming if he is Juiok Kim, who got first place at the orientation. And as Juiok looks behind, it seems to be a bunch of bullies. They are apparently his senior, with the ugly blondie being Lyric Sunrise, as he tells Juiok to show them some respect. But Juiok replies that he looks more like a bully. It pisses them off, as they tell him that he should have come to them himself to pay respect. The baldy tells Lyric that he would go and take care of him, though Lyric tells him to go easy. And as soon as the baldy walks up to him, before he gives off his one-liners, Juiok kicks him right in the gut and tells everyone that it's enough with their big talk. They should all come at him at once. The baldy is sent flying from the kick and crashes on the wall behind. Lyric is quite shocked seeing this, and notices the sword in Juiok's hands, but notices that he didn't saw it earlier. Juiok comments how he missed the feeling of a sword in his hand. It's been too long for him, and so he asks them to hurry up before he goes to crush their heads. Now we go back in time to 3 hours earlier, where Rockdale is giving Lyric a task, which is to take care of Juiok, and it won't be for free, since he would try to help the Sunrise clan as best as he can in return. He also tells them that they can use their weapons as well if they want. He would take care of the cleanup. And so, he asks for his decision and Lyric agrees to do his work. As he leaves the room, Lyric thinks that even if Juiok is at top of the year, he would still be a first year, so he should be nothing compared to a second year. And the first year and the second year students at Valhalla are fundamentally different, because the second years have contracts with the constellations. In the second semester, the students go down to the constellation room and make contract with the constellations, and after they become contractors, they enter their second year. And after that, you can also harness your constellation power, so he believes that an insignificant like Juiok won't even have a clan or constellation, so he would be easy to deal with. Or, so he thought, as we see Juiok easily taking them down one by one. One of them uses their power on their dagger to attack, but before he can do anything, he gets smacked on the face. One of them then jumps on Juiok to attack. But Juiok easily dodges him and hits him right on the face, which sends him flying, as Lyric watches all of this nervously. He is unable to believe what is happening. He questions how is he able to take down everyone despite them using their constellation powers. And he notes that the way he uses his sword is also strange. It's almost as if he is walking around and swinging his sword, and the people are just letting themselves get hit. He then points the weapon at them, saying that he told them he will crush their heads if they held back. Lyric notes that all of them are thinking about running away, so he tries to tell them to not run away, as Juiok is just a first year. Seeing which, Juiok comments that the leader seems to have some spirit, and Lyric gets ready to attack. But before he can even react, Juiok already has his sword up to his gut, saying that he won't just stand there and take his attack. He then applies force on the end of his sword, causing a shockwave throughout Lyric's body, as he wonders, when did he even got so close? We see he was knocked out cold, and Juiok slaps him to wake him up. He questions, who are they and why did they attack him? And Lyric replies that it's like he told him before, they are his seniors. Juiok questions further if it's normal for a senior to attack an underclassman while fully armed, and again asks who sent him. Lyric once again replies that they just wanted to put him in his place. Juiok replies that it must be loyalty among bullies and sarcastically calls it touching. But regardless, Juiok starts to leave, telling them to clean up properly. But Lyric tells him to wait and threatens him if he really thinks that he would have a normal high school life after this. Even if he is the top first year, once people would know about this, he would be expelled. Juiok simply replies, okay, but also warns that he would be the one to tell people, wouldn't he? The fact that group of second years attacked a first year, yet got their ass handed to them, if this gets out, would he really be able to show his face around the school? So he should think wisely, because it's his school life and guild prospects on the line. We now switch scenes to Rockdale, who is waiting for Lyric to call him. And as soon as he does, and after picking up the call, Rockdale excitedly asks if he taught Juiok a lesson. But instead of saying what Rockdale expected, Lyric tells him that he is done with this, shocking Rockdale. Rockdale asks him once again, what did he just said, and Lyric replies, he don't want anything to do with Juiok anymore. Rockdale is quite surprised and confused at hearing that, since Lyric was really confident when they were talking earlier. And just like that, Lyric cuts the phone, while Rockdale shouts at him to wait. He asks Lyric if Juiok ended up beating him, and asks about reporting it to the teachers. Since there are visible injuries, they would have evidence as well, and if he can just do that for him, then he will give him the full amount as promised, and even hook him up with his clan. But Lyric replies, even with the support of the Bentrick clan, they won't be able to restore the honor they lost today. And so, he cuts the call by telling him good luck in the end. Rockdale gets pissed and throws his phone away, calling Lyric a piece of trash. He once again calls out to Yuria and asks if she has contacted Dezera, and she replies she has informed him that he wanted to meet him, though it might take him some time since he is far away. Rockdale questions, where is he? And we switch scenes to Mexico at Arpia Academy. We see a bunch of students laying on top of each other, defeated. And on top of them sitting is Dezera Bentrick, who received a call that Rockdale wants him to come to Korea. He gets the message that Rockdale wants him to come to Korea and take care of Juiok Kim, and he will be rewarded handsomely for this, which makes him grin. Apparently, he has been tight on money ever since he was kicked out of the clan, so this is exactly what he needed. Now next day at 6 a.m., Valhalla Physical Training Center. Juiok arrives there, and notes that the center is huge, as it gets him in the mood to run. Suddenly, Varche speaks up. What is he doing here? He questions and Juiok is confused, asking him, where is he speaking from? And he replies, from his sword that he stored, and asks Juiok, why is he so surprised? He replies that he thought that he escaped somehow, and that he would have to beat him up and drag him back again, hearing which sends chills down his spine. And Varche replies that he didn't run away, so he don't need to worry, which Juiok replies is good to hear. He then starts stretching, asking Varche if it was a good thing, and Varche asks if he is talking about his health. Juiok replies it's about his sword, since it became a divine artifact and it was being kept at Valhalla, yet he took it out of the constellation room. Varche tells him that there is no need for him to worry, as he already used copy to create a duplicate, but it's exactly what Juiok is worried about. As he questioned, how did his sword gain the ability to store and copy in the first place? And Varche replies, when he gained consciousness, he lost all of his powers, but he was able to use copy and store from the beginning. But he don't know the reason for it, which makes Juiok sarcastically ask him if he do know anything even. And as he stretches back completely, he sees Aaron standing behind him. They both greet each other, and Aaron asks if he is going to teach her swordplay now. Juiok declines, saying that they need to work on her stamina first, and she asks, why is that? And so, Juiok tells her to go if she doesn't want to, and she immediately agrees to do so. And so, he tells her to hurry up and start stretching. He knows that improving stamina allows body to better absorb and control mana, and it's the most basic way to improve. Yet the modern training trends have got it all wrong. They put everything into mana training before they even have stamina to control it. And Erin is no different either. She has a deep mana pool, but she has the stamina of a sword-wielding student. And after she completes her stretching, Juiok tells her that it's time to get on the real training. And so, we see them doing various exercises, with Erin struggling to keep up. She starts to pant heavily soon after while Juhyuk is only warmed up now, hearing which surprises her, as she asks him to repeat what he said. He tells her to get up as they still have to run 10 miles at full speed. Now fast forward to class. Juhyuk comments that his workout was harder than last time, but he finished up pretty well and notes that this body has potential. Meanwhile, Erin has her whole body throbbing with pain. And now, a new teacher arrives, who is the labyrinth monster instructor, Lilia, who tells everyone to settle down, as they are going to have a written test today. On the first day, she told them all to familiarize themselves with different strategies for dealing with monsters, and today she will be testing how they handle the monsters according to the official strategies. And with that, everyone starts writing their tests. But Juhyuk seems to be just sitting there causally. And soon enough, the time is up, and she tells all the students to pass up the papers to her, and informs them that while today's test won't be reflected on their grades, she will still use them as reference to measure their ability for the next class. And with that, she leaves with the paper to grade them. Varche asks Juhyuk if it's really okay answering those questions like that, while Juhyuk gets annoyed by the fact that he was watching that as well. He replies, there is not anything else to do for him besides this, and Juhyuk asks if he can read his thoughts. Varche replies he can only hear thoughts that he wants to convey, and Juhyuk answers his previous question, that he only answered the question the way he would have handled the situation, and Varche replies, if it's like that, then it's fine. Back at the teacher's office, Lilia is furious upon seeing Juhyuk's answers. We now see Eigen arriving at the teacher's lounge, and he notices Lilia doing some work. He asks if she is grading his class's papers, and she affirms, saying that she asked them to review the monster handling methods before the virtual combat simulation training, so she gave them a simple quiz. And she finds the results to be quite good overall as well, and with that Eigen leaves for his coffee. But right as he begins drinking it, he hears her shouting Juhyuk's name, making him spit his drink. Shouting, how can he call these answers? And Eigen looks over and asks Lilia if something is wrong with Juhyuk's answers. She replies, it's not just wrong, but an insult to her class, and so, she plans to use him as an example for her next class. She plans to show him that labyrinth monsters cannot be easily dealt with. Now a week later, at Virtual Combat Simulation Facility, she tells everyone that she has graded the quizzes from last time and most of them were close to the answer. But she calls out Juhyuk to front of the class. She shows him his answers, and it's graded at 0 points. And she questions him if he even tried, and Juhyuk replies with a serious face that he did. And so she asks, for the first question, describe the most effective way to defeat a stone goblin. What was the answer that he wrote? And he replies, stab in the stomach, which makes her smack herself on her head. On to the second question. In a hall-type labyrinth, there are 8 goblins hurling rock at him. How will he deal with them? And he answers, he would start with ones charging and stab them all and send them to the afterlife. Lilia is surprised that he was being serious. She planned to let him go, if he at least acted like he learned a bit of strategy. And she nags at him that stone goblins have AB+ resistance to physical attacks, so regular swords won't work on them. Yet he is telling her that he is going to stab him with a sword. And he still stands by his point, stating that it would only take 1 strike. Lilia starts to get pissed, thinking that it's ridiculous. And so, she tells him that since he is so confident in his answers, she would give him a second chance. And just like that, she uses the simulation to summon the monsters. And tells Juhyuk that if he kills this monster just like he wrote on the paper, then she would give him credit, and Juhyuk smirks while agreeing to it. He asks her to hold the paper for him, and goes on to pick a sword. As he stands face to face with the goblin, Lilia notes that she heard that he killed 120 goblins in this simulation before, so his talent does seems real. But regardless, she still believes that it's impossible to kill a stone goblin with a regular sword. And as soon as the goblin attacks Juhyuk, he prepares his sword to stab him. And in the next moment, Lilia is shocked, as we see he has actually stabbed the stone goblin right through his body. And the defeated monster soon disappears, leaving behind the sword, with students standing shocked behind. And Juhyuk glances back at Lilia, telling her that it's just like he said, stab it in the stomach. Soyeon is left shocked, as he was able to stab a stone goblin without even using mana, and Sihyuk is left speechless. Lilia stutters, but asks Juhyuk, how did he do that? And he replies, it's just like what she saw. He just took the sword and stabbed it, but it's not the answer that Lilia was expecting. As to kill a stone goblin with a sword, you would need to infuse it with the mana of an A-rank contractor or higher, so it usually takes a special strike to take them out. Yet, Juriak killed it by simply stabbing it with the sword, as he asks if he can get his credits now. She replies, he can only for the first question, and moves on the second one. And this time, she is able to simulate an entrance of a dungeon, and Juriak finds it quite amazing. He tries to ask her about it, but she tells him to not be distracted and to look in front of him. As we see, multiple jungle goblins are out from the entrance, with Lilia noting that they are known for their anger management issues, so dealing with them is tricky. If you are not careful, then the lead jungle goblin will start howling, and immediately, the other jungle goblins within the labyrinth will come in for a group attack. And so normally, assistance from Constellation using magic is needed to kill them all, or running away is the other option. And even though there are only 3 in front of him, if he provokes them, more will come running. So even if Juriak is good with his sword, it would be difficult for him to handle 3 at once, and she heard that his movements aren't very quick either. But Juriak quickly stabs the goblin in front right in his head. And as the other goblins tries to scream, he stabs them in the mouth. And just like that, he ends up defeating them easily too, leaving Lilia shocked once again. And with that, Juriak turns back and asks if he can get credit score for the second question as well now. Now we fast forward to Juriak and Eren training. And as they finish up, Eren is once again really tired and pants heavily. Juriak looks at her and comments, asking if her clan didn't put her through any training. How can she be already tired out by this? She replies that she usually don't train this intensely, and so Juriak questions, then how does she plan on dealing with monsters if she isn't training like this? And she replies that she can just use her mana and the power of her constellation. And so, Juriak realizes that the reason everyone focuses on training their mana and ignore the basic stamina training is because of the constellation. Even if they don't raise their stamina, if they have enough training to utilize their constellation power, it's game over, though it does come with a big risk. What would happen if they were to run into a mana blocking spell in a labyrinth or a dungeon? Or if they're stuck inside fighting for days and they run out of mana? Or even worse, what if the constellation refuses to share their power? And so, he calls out Eren and asks if the physical training feels meaningful to her. And she affirms that it does, since Juriak told her that he would teach her swordplay if she did this. Juriak asks if it means that she is only doing it because he told her so, and she once again agrees. And with that, Juriak ends the training for today, as she needs to go back to classes, but she asks if he is not coming. And he replies that he is going to do one more set and asks if she is asking because she is going to join him as well. Though seeing her reaction, he asks her to go ahead, and she leaves, telling him that she would see him later. Varche asks if her name was Eren Choi, and Juriak asks, why is he asking? He replies that it looked like she kept up with his training without a single complaint. And questioned Juriak, how did he end up helping her train? And he replies that she kept bothering him to teach her swordplay. And Varche asks if he has ever even shown her his swordplay, and he replies that he has not specifically demonstrated anything, but she probably saw him swinging during classes. And Varche replies that she had a good eye if she was able to judge him just by seeing him practice, and Juriak replies that he found her intriguing as well. Suddenly, he notices Sihyok also training besides him. And as he finishes up his training, he gets up and looks towards his side, and both of them stare at each other. Juriak asks, how long has he been here? And he replies, since the beginning. He always exercised before school. And he quickly leaves after saying that, with Juriak noting that he assumes he keeps training because of his natural talents. Varche asks if he is interested in him as well, and he replies that he is smarter compared to those who only focus on mana training, something which Varche agrees on. Juriak then questions, what does constellations even do? And he replies, he don't know. And so once again, Juriak asks if there is anything that he does know. Varche replies that he may be a constellation, but he has been stuck in the same place for 300 years, so he don't know anything about other constellations. But he might be able to learn more about them if he completes the new quest in his notification window. And the new quest, Valhalla, the Great Forest's Eye. He has heard of it during the class. It's where they go for the survival game at the end of the semester. And if it weren't for that goal, he would have took his weapon and ran away, but now he would have to keep out of trouble for the time being. Varche replies Didn't he had a big confrontation with the bullies? And he replies, they won't likely stir up anything, and he went easy on them. Because they would have ended up like him if he didn't, which once again sends chills down Varch's spine. But regardless, to complete this quest, he has to stay at Valhalla, and then the secrets of his reincarnation will come to light as well. We now switch scenes to London, the Bintrick Manor. We see a photo of some bare-masked entity, and a blonde lady sitting across the table with her attendant standing across it. She asks him to tell her how it went, and she is apparently the vice-clan head, Adelia Bintrick. Her attendant replies that the labyrinth on the outskirts of the Reading has been taken care of, and so she commends him for good work and asks if there is anything else. He informs her that he came across some promising possible recruits. They are the survivors of the Roberto clan, which fell due to the labyrinth. She asks if there is anything special about them, and he replies that both of them are rank contractors. And so, she replies that they wouldn't have problem in receiving the Bintrick's blessing, and asks him to test them separately and bring them to her. She asks if it's all for today, and her attendant gets nervous, saying that he has something to report about Rockdale. And she asks what he has done this time. And he replies that apparently he has called Desera to South Korea, hearing which seemingly angers her. Desera Bintrick, he is a stain on the Bintrick clan and the worst troublemaker. He committed countless terrible crimes and acts under the Bintrick name. At the age of 19, he killed 5 contractors affiliated with the UK Academy over a simple dispute. Ultimately, at the age of 20, he was banished from the Bintrick clan. They had to keep their heads down for years because of the trouble he caused, and now he is meeting Rockdale. And so, she tells her attendant that she wants him to keep an eye on Rockdale, and also inform him that the moment he is caught stirring up trouble, he will be banished from the clan. And with that, he leaves as he don't have anything left to report. Adelia thinks that everyone these days are using the constellation's power to do whatever they want. Such power isn't meant for pests like them, she believes. That power is all for one. And she believes that it's all for her. While looking over at her constellation, asking, if isn't that right, my dear constellation? Now we switch scenes back to the classes, where the instructor is explaining about the wicked. It is a term which is used for referring to contractors who commit crimes using the powers of their constellations. Most of them operate individually, but some of them are also in an organization. Among these groups, the most notorious criminal organization is One Believer and the constellation they choose. Now, while all this lecture is going on, Juhyok is deep in his thoughts, noting that his current body isn't bad. He can feel himself growing stronger just by exercising, but his mana control is also better since he has been reborn. He wouldn't call himself prodigy, but has much more potential in this body than he did in his old one, which he finds really strange. Even if the owner of this body had never gone through training before, how can his body be in such condition? On his first day, when he attempted the small heavenly cultivation, he was just barely able to finish since he had less mana than even an average person. And he was so weak that even a bit of digging wore him out completely. But regardless, he decides to just let it go, since there is no point in stressing over it now. Suddenly, someone taps on his desk. And it's Soyeonyu, who slides him a note. And as Juhyok opens it up, it has a simple greeting on it. And due to this, he is both quite annoyed and confused. Now fast forward to Eigen classes, who informs everyone that they would be allowed out of the campus this weekend. Anyone who plans to go out should fill out the application form and give it to him. And upon hearing that, Juhyok quickly fills out the form. Varche asks if he is planning to go out of the campus, and he replies that he thought of a place to go. Varche asks, where is he planning to go, and right as he is about to answer, someone calls him out. And when he looks behind, it turns out to be Soyeon. Seeing whom, he remembers Aaron and comments if anyone in this school can say more than one word, and asks, what does she want? He took the time to reply to her letter earlier, but she didn't even react, and so he asks her to hurry up as he has to go and submit his letter as well. She tries to speak up, but is unable to say what she wants at all, which really annoys Juhyok. He angrily lashes out at her, telling her to speak up and calls her a weirdo for this. But she gets offended by getting called that, and asks, who is he calling a weirdo? And Juhyok replies, if it's normal thing to just stand there and piss him off. And he once again asks, what does she want to tell him? She remembers back when she saw him taking down the stone goblin in one shot. This thing completely shocked her, as there was nothing about that in the textbook. And so, she wanted to ask how he managed to do that, and yet asking it hurts her pride so much. But she clenches her lips, and as she is about to speak up, Instructor Lilia jumps in, asking Juiok if he could tell her how did he killed that stone goblin. And this sudden situation leaves all of them speechless. As Juiok wonders, where did she even come from? As he asks Lilia, why is she asking him that? As he thought that she really hated him. But she acts oblivious to the fact, and Juiok says that he proved her wrong about all of the problems in class, which must have been embarrassing for her. She replies she is not bothered by that, and believed there was only way to kill the monster, but he opened up a whole new world to her. And so, she offers him to become her assistant, and he quickly rejects her offer and says that he needs to go and submit his form. She tries to give a long-ass speech to convince him, but Juiok gets annoyed and rejects her again, while Soyeon is left standing as she tries to ask him her question. Lilia offers him money and all that shit, but Juiok asks if she is not embarrassed to be like this with a student, and she replies she is not, if it takes this to get him to talk with her, while Soyeon is getting completely ignored. And so, she sighs and forgets it, saying that she don't need him. Now fast forward to the next day, and Juiok has arrived at the place he wanted to go, called the market. We go back to some time ago at Valhalla Dormitory. Juiok seems to be searching for something, and Varche asks, what is he looking for? And he replies, information about the place that where he is going tomorrow. He was looking for a place to sell some of the treasures from his secret warehouse, and turns out there is a decent place to do that. And after searching for a bit, he finally finds it, the market. From what he researched about it, for a small fee, one can make all sorts of transactions without any limitations. It sounds like it's pretty safe as well. Moreover, it is fairly easily accessible worldwide. But thanks to that, it has become a hub for the wickets, making it illegal. But the reason this nonsensical market can operate is the one who created the market is a guardian constellation called the ruler of the other side, as it is said on the internet. But since a guardian constellation manages it, and a lot of high-profile political people visit it, it's not easy to crack down. And which was also the reason that it was easy to find how to enter it, and so he decides to take a look. The comment gives on a full explanation, along with a link in the comment section. But as he tries to open it, suddenly he gets a message from Erin, who sends him a bunch of crying emojis. She tells her that she is going off campus, so she won't be able to train tomorrow, and he thinks he is going as well, so it would have been difficult in the first place. And so he simply writes congrats, which confuses her a bit. She sends him a question mark, and he replies, to have fun, and so she again sends him a bunch of happy emojis. He gets annoyed when she keeps texting him until he responds, but regardless, he notes that the post told him, if he clicks on the link in the comments, then he would be able to make a reservation and get the location, which he does so. Now on to the next day, upon searching for a bit, he finally finds it, and it seems to be an old broken-down cafe. And when he enters inside, he remembers the post telling him to go through the door in the corner of the cafe. And when he exits from the gate and arrives to the other side, he wonders if this is it. And we get the full view of the market. But looking at it, he feels weird, even though it's his first time coming here, yet it all feels really familiar to him. Especially the purple sky and the hazy moon are all too similar to the night sky that he was used to see 300 years ago. Suddenly, a guy arrives and asks Juiok if it's his first time here. Seeing whom, he remembers that the post was talking about this person. And so, Juiok tells him that it's indeed his first time, and the guy asks if he knows how the market works, and he replies, pretty much, and hands him over the cash. This is the rest of the scholarship he got for getting first in the entrance exam, and now he has around 30,000 won left on hand, but he believes that he will make it back here, so it doesn't matter. The guy asks Juiok if he has any question, and he replies, he is one, he has some gems to sell, so where should he go? The guy asks if he plans on selling them at the auction, and he replies, whichever way is the quickest. The guy suggests to go to District 3 next to the auction house. There, he would find merchants who would buy anything from gems to weapons, regardless of legality. Juiok asks who is the most trustworthy merchant here, and he replies, for hold or gems, Morris is known to provide fair price. Juiok then asks for the district's location, and the guy shows him the way. Walk straight ahead, and when he comes to the intersection, he should go down the middle street, and Juiok thanks him for this. But before he leaves, the guy has one more thing to say, which is to wear a mask while he is here, as it's recommended. As considering that a lot of the items here are of dubious origin, everyone here wears masks for the most part. And the mask is also on the house. And so Juyeok wears it and leaves while thanking him. Now at the District Market 3, we see a guy wearing white mask, and Juyeok asks him if he is Morris, which he affirms. And so Juyeok tells him that he got some things that he needs to sell, and Morris replies, it depends on what he is selling, but if it's just gold or jewels, he can take care of them really quick for him. Juyeok then gets out his bag and takes out the items from it. He puts the whole pouch in front of him, stating that he wants to sell these, and Morris notes that they are rings. And upon inspecting the ring closely, Morris is incredibly shocked, as the ring is a relic, apparently from the End era. He thinks that no matter how he looks at it, it's an artifact from the End era, and wonders if other stuff in the pouch are same as well. And we see there are a lot more artifacts in there, and all of them are from the same era, which completely shocks him. And so, Juyeok speaks up and asks, how much can he offer for this? Morris hesitates and thinks, where did he even got all these relics from? And judging by his voice, he is 20 years old at max. And so, he questions Juyeok, where did he got all these relics from? And he replies that he heard these kinds of questions aren't asked here. And so, Morris drops his question and admits his mistake, thinking that he got too distracted by the items that he asked something that he should not have, and almost tarnished his 30-year-old reputation. Morris finally speaks up, telling Juyeok that he cannot take these. Since they are relics from the End era, he don't have enough cash on hand to buy it from him. Juyeok doesn't know what it means by End era, and asks, where should he sell them for at a decent price then? Morris replies, on his way here, you should have passed the tall building, which is the auction house, and Juyeok asks, how long would it take usually to sell something there? And Morris replies, on average, it takes around 2 weeks. A lot of people are waiting in line, so it would take some time for a slot to open up. And so, Juyeok asks if he would have to come back in person in a few weeks then, and Morris replies he would need to, since he needs to be verified to receive the payment, which Juyeok finds such a hassle, and so he asks Morris, since he said that he couldn't take these earlier, how much can he expect for these? Morris starts calculating an estimated amount on his phone. And when he shows the amount, Juyeok is left shocked as he wonders just how many zeros are there in that amount. He did store away items that were expensive back then as well, but even then he finds the amount to be quite insane. And so, Juyeok asks how much cash would he need more to buy these, and he replies that he can only tell his estimate, as price in auction would be a different story, but even if he sold everything he owns, he would still only have around 3/4 of its total worth. But Juyeok decides to sell him at that price regardless, and it completely shocks Morris. Relics from the End era, while their antique status plays a role in their high value, there is another significant reason behind it, which are the constellations. They started to appear after the End era, and oddly enough, they reacted strongly to relics from that era. Thanks to these relics, there were even powerless ordinary people who were able to make contract with an S-rank constellation, and that person was known as Alchemist John, and he's still active. And when he looks closer at the ring, he can still see the mana residue. There were mana waves that surged forth while preventing the destruction during the late stages of End era. All relics from that era still have traces of that mana residue. And he got 8 relics from that era, which surprises him as he was able to buy them at such a low price. And so, he finds today a very lucky day for himself. Suddenly, someone arrives at his shop, seeing whom, Morris is left shocked. And it's someone wearing a black fox mask. Back to Juyeok, who takes out the mask as soon as he gets out of the market, citing that it was quite uncomfortable. And if he leave through the door that he came through, then he should return to his original location, and it is the same cafe that he entered through earlier. He then checks his phone and sees that he has received the money, and thinks that it should solve his money problem for now, and he didn't expect to earn this much from just 8 rings from the secret warehouse. And even if he runs out of money, he still have a ton more of these stuff, so he should have any problems of money from now on. Suddenly, he receives a call from an unknown number, and as he picks it up, it turns out to be Lilia, who asks Juyeok to have lunch together with her. But Juyeok asks, where did she got his number from, and she replies that she is a professor at Valhalla. Though citing it as not important, she again asks to have a lunch with him, and asks him to come to the front of the Valhalla Physical Center. It would be her treat, and cuts the call before Juhyuk can say anything. And he notes that she didn't even let him have a word, but decides to just go with the flow and have a free meal, since he don't have anything else left to do. Back to Morris, he asks the Black Mask, what is he doing here? And the Black Mask replies, weren't they closer than that? And Morris replies, even if they have seen each other a few times, a regular merchant like him cannot get too friendly with the market's owner. And the guy is apparently called Black Cat, who tells Morris that the way he is treating him is the reason that he likes him. Morris again asks what brings him here, and he replies that it's noting important. He noticed that he applied for an auction anonymously for the first time in a while. And Morris replies that it wasn't anonymous, it seems, and Black Cat tells him that the actual owner is his Lord Constellation, so he can gather any information that his constellation wants. But regardless, he asks Morris if he can see the items that he listed for auction. And Morris agrees, but thinks that it's quite weird, since Black Cat has never shown interest in any items before, even if they were from End Era. And as Morris gives him the rings, Black Cat takes them out to check, and tells Morris that they would sell for very high price. Suddenly, his Lord Constellation is astonished from seeing the rings, and spams Black Cat that he wants this ring. And so, Black Cat tells Morris that his Lord Constellation appears to wants this ring. Now back to Juhyuk, who seems to be on a lunch with Lilia. She twirls the noodles and starts eating while exclaiming that it's really good. But she notices that Juhyuk is staring away, and so she asks him, why is he not eating? And he replies that he didn't know that Valhalla had a place like this. She tells him that Valhalla has regular restaurants besides the school cafeteria and staff restaurant, and he replies that he is not particularly interested. And so, he asks her, why did she wanted to see him? And excitedly replies that she wants him to be his assistant, which Juhyuk immediately declines. She tells him to at least think about before he answers, and being her assistant would bring him many benefits, and asks him to please listen to her for a moment, since Juhyuk must have known what she is going to ask him. And so, Juhyuk asks, what kind of benefits? She replies, first thing, he would get a scholarship and it's quite big, though Juhyuk isn't interested in that. Second thing, he would get chance to write a thesis with her, and if he publishes that, he would open up new horizons in monster rating, and if that happens, his name would be listed in the World Monster Research Society, though once again, he doesn't seem interested. Third thing, he can go off campus twice a week instead of once a month, but Juhyuk asks if there is anything else, and she tries to think of more, and replies, an opportunity to work with her, and Juhyuk replies, it sounds like an overinflated ego, so Lilia gives up and requests to just be his assistant. And he once again rejects, thinking that if there were any good benefits, he would have thought about it, but there is nothing that's even a little tempting for him. And the urgent matter right now is to go to the place mentioned in the notification window, and he can only get there during the first-year performance assessment, so even if she is a professor, it would be hard to get in. And so, he gives her straight that he is not going to be her assistant, and he won't write a thesis either. So lastly, Lilia offers to trade information, asking if she provides him information that interests him, and he would give her monster rating information in return. Juhyuk asks, what kind of information? And she replies, information about Aaron Choi, and Juhyuk wonders if she is saying this because she thinks that he is interested in her, and right as he is about to decline, she tells him that she heard Aaron is going to be expelled from her clan. And he simply gives of a dry response and starts to leave, though Lilia tries to make him wait, asking, where is he going? He replies that he is done eating, and the benefits aren't appealing to him, so he is taking his leave. She replies that she gave him information, so he should give her something in return. And Juhyuk replies that he didn't really wanted to hear it, and Lilia argues that he still did hear it. And so he sits down and asks that he has a personal question. For someone who can so childish, why is she such a snob when she is teaching? And she replies, it's because she is Labyrinth Monster Professor. If she don't take her job seriously, then her students can end up badly hurt. Knowledge about monsters is fundamentally linked to students' chances of survival. They never bother to learn on their own, so she has to be hard on them. Juhyuk asks if it means that she is putting on a show, and she replies, it's not a show, it's her duty as a professor. And with that, Juhyuk calls her impressive and leaves while telling her good luck. But she still tries to ask him for some information in return, and he once again declines. We now switch scenes to Truth Choi clan. And Erin seems to be sitting along with her family. Her father, Janseok Choi, who is the clan head, tells them that the reason he called them here today is to ask them about their intentions before the selection test to determine the successor of their clan. And we are also introduced to her brother, Jingyeon Choi. He tells them that if they pass the selection test, they would have the opportunity to form a contract through the divine artifact, Blue Moon Blade. It would be a proof that they would be recognized as the legitimate successor of the clan. But if they were to fail, according to the tradition of the clan, they would be expelled. And so, he asks both of them if they are willing to do it, and both of them agrees for it. Both her brother and father seems to be staring at Aaron for some reason after hearing her response, but regardless, he agrees for her participation. He then informs them both that the test would take place in 3 weeks, so they can leave now. Now as both of them are walking in the hallway, Jingyeon asks Aaron if she cannot take a hint. But she doesn't understand what he means, and he asks, when she agreed for the participation, didn't she saw their father's expression? And so, she remembers and realizes, as her brother states, that looks like she really wants to be the clan head. An illegitimate child like her, hearing which, Aaron gets angry. Jingyeon calls her expression menacing and tells her to not delude herself into thinking that she can win the selection test. Because she has only received a blessing from the constellation, so she won't even be able to touch him, since he has already made a basic contract. And he starts to leave while threatening her that he will make her realize the true price for her choice, since she has already given up on just living off the clan's money. And with a cold gaze, he closes the gate, while telling her that he would see her in 3 weeks. She remembers her past, where some old woman tells her that she must become the clan head, and do whatever her heart desires. Now we fast forward to classes, where Eigen seems to be explaining about the midterms exams. Varche also speaks up, stating that it's going to be midterms soon, and Jiyeok asks if he even cares about that. He replies that if he just sit quietly, he can hear everything, and isn't their homeroom teacher explaining about midterms right now? And Jiyeok replies he don't know, as he don't pay attention in class. Eigen tells everyone that in Valhalla, exams are crucial. In both midterms and finals, the lowest scoring students will be expelled immediately, so they would have to be ready. And so, everyone needs to study hard for both practical and written exams, making Jiyeok think that while the practical is going to be easy, he don't know about the written exam. Since he have to stay at this school until he can get to the Great Forest's Eye, he cannot take it lightly. He then calls out to Varche, who asks, what is it? And Jiyeok asks if he has listened to most of these classes, and he replies, he have. And so, he asks Varche to take the exam for him, which surprises him, and Jiyeok tells him that when he marks the answer, he has to tell him if it's correct or not. He replies, it would be like using proxy, and he doesn't find it fair. Jiyeok replies, there is nothing unfair in this, as he is simply filling in the answers that his Lord Constellation wants. And with that, Eigen also ends the class for today. But when Jiyeok starts to leave, someone calls him out. And it's Aaron, who asks if they're going to be training today as well. And Jiyeok replies, they will, and asks if she wants to stop or something, and she replies, it's not that. And so, he asks if she wants him to teach her swordplay, and her expression visibly changes. Seeing which, Jiyeok says that he figured she would ask around now, since she probably haven't even had time to draw her sword after training with him. And so, while it's not a swordplay or some blade technique, he can show her how to grip the blade properly. And notes that it's time for him to start weapon training as well. With that, he asks her to come to the sparring stage next to the physical training center, and she gets quite happy and excited upon hearing that. Now at Valhalla sparring stage, Jiyeok asks, how many days has it been since she last practiced her sword work? And she replies, a month and a half. She hasn't touched anything since she started training with him. And so, Jiyeok questions, was she training every day with it before that, which she did? And so, he asks her to draw her sword, which she does. He instructs her to grab the blade firmly while keeping tension in her ring and pinky finger. And so she does and tightly clenches the sword. Suddenly, she notices something, and her blade seems to be emitting a purple aura. She notes that she has not even infused mana, yet the entire blade feels more secure and stable than holding with both hands. And with this, he asks her to come at him, use all of her strength, whether it's mana or anything else. Hearing which, she sheaths her sword again and gets in posture. She gets completely covered in sparks of electricity as she starts to draw out her sword. and immediately notices that her blade is coming out too fast, though Juhyuk is able to block her strike easily. And Juhyuk states the same thing as well. Along with that, he tells her to not use more mana than necessary when she draws her blade. And so, she once again sheathes her sword and gets into posture. She rushes at him and does an upward slash, which Juhyuk finds quite good, though he still dodges it easily, and again gives her a tip to turn her body a little more when she slashes. And so, this time he tells her to come at him without any rest, which she does. And so, we see them sparring against each other, with Eren seems to be doing much better than before. Her power seems to have grown enough to cause cracks in grounds. And she notes that it's just like she thought. She has definitely become much stronger, all thanks to her training with Juhyuk. Now fast forward a bit later, Eren starts panting heavily after sparring for quite a bit. Meanwhile, Juhyuk seems completely fine and asks if it's been an hour and decides to call it quits for today. She finally sits down from being all tired. And looking at Juhyuk, she thinks that her current blade technique has definitely gotten much cleaner. It's incomparable to the level she was at the entrance ceremony. And notes that even then, she wasn't able to land a single hit on Juhyuk. Though, it is the whole reason that she asked him to teach her in the first place. She now calls him out and asks if he would spar with her again next time. Juhyuk thinks for a bit and replies that he don't know. And notes that sparring with her is definitely helpful. She has talent despite her airheadedness, and teaching her is also satisfying for him. But ever since the entrance ceremony, he felt that her blade technique is strangely familiar. It's like her breathing is the only thing that is different from the blade technique he knows. But whatever is the case, her familiar technique is helping him regain his old touch. And if it were 300 years ago, he would have considered taking her as a disciple, but finds it unfortunate that he don't have time for it right now. And so, Eren once again asks him if they are going to spar again, and Juhyuk decides to tease her a bit and declines. But she is okay with that, and it surprises Juhyuk as he asks, why did she give up so quickly? And she replies, it's because whatever he says is right, believing that if she follows Juhyuk's advice, she will definitely become even stronger. Juhyuk is a bit surprised hearing that, and tells her that at least for today, this is it. Now fast forward to 2 weeks later, at Valhalla Arena. Soyeon notes that it's the first time she has been to the arena since the entrance ceremony, and Sehyuk notes that all the first students are gathered here. He didn't expect to see such a large-scale event. Juhyuk wonders, why is everyone gathered here? And Varche tells him that it must be for that thing that his homeroom teacher mentioned, but Juhyuk doesn't remember what was it. Sankyol arrives and starts to explain the Valhalla midterm exams. This midterm practical evaluation is going to be dungeon raiding. They would all have to team up and enter an artificial dungeon. And just then, the ground starts to tremble, and from it, few dungeons pops up. It's up to them how they compose their teams, and he personally thinks that the ideal amount of people per team is 8, but they can choose to have more or less on their own teams. And they would be evaluated based solely on their contribution to the raid. And the criteria for disqualification is failing to pass within the given time. And additionally, the dungeon difficulty level is F+. And with that, he announces the commencement of the exam. And so, everyone quickly starts to pick their members and form their teams. Seeing which, Eigen says that it's just like Sankyol thought. They all have been caught off guard, which Sankyol agrees with. But he still notes that some students are doing decent as he looks over to Soyeon, who is forming her team while being observant. She notes that has no need to pick someone better than her. 5 hours is more than enough for 8 people to clear AF plus rank dungeon. What would matter is how much they contribute. So she thinks of getting 6 people who are decent but not too good. And it may seem easy, but finding a way to stand out might be challenging as she leads everyone after forming the team. Sankyol notes that the students from 5 major clans have grasped the point of the test quite well, and as for other students, they're either going in groups of 20, or taking the conventional approach of an 8-person party, or fighting because their team isn't balanced, one of 3. He then tells Eigen to start the preparation for evaluation, as after about 30 minutes, all the students will enter the dungeon. Juhyuk seems to be standing alone and thinks if they are already evaluating them since some students have entered the dungeon. And as he is planning his move, he notices Eren standing alone. He goes to her and asks if she still hasn't gone in, and she declines, so Juhyuk asks what is she going to do, since almost everyone has gone in. And she replies she is going to do whatever he will be doing, which both surprises and confuses him. It makes Ji-hyuk wonder what is up with her, as ever since the last sparring, she is trying to follow his every word. And Ji-hyuk replies that he is going in alone. She can do whatever she wants. And so, Aaron asks if she should go in alone as well, and Ji-hyuk tells her, sure, if she wants to, since it doesn't seem that difficult. And so, she seems to have made up her mind. Other students notice her being standing alone and approaches her, asking if she doesn't have a team, she can join them, as they would have a perfect team of 8 then. But she apologizes and declines, saying that she is going in alone. The other students are surprised as they tell her to not be ridiculous, as she is going to get herself eliminated if she does that. But she replies that she can do it, as Ji-hyuk told her that it won't be difficult. They try to make her wait, but she ignores them and goes in alone regardless. Fast forward to some time later, and Sang-yeol along with other instructors are in the Valhalla monitor room. They seems to be watching over the students and grading based on how well they are performing. And the gradings are done by Sang-yeol, seeing whom Eigen is quite impressed. Noting that to someone unfamiliar the grades might seem rushed or imprecise, but that quick grading is absolutely accurate without a single mistake. Combat instructor, Sang-yeol Lee was a legendary contractor back in his day, known as the Clear Master, with a dungeon completion rate of 99%. So, he understands the core of the dungeon better than anyone else, which allows him to do such precise grading. Sang-yeol, upon watching the students, thinks that the students this year are pretty good overall. And naturally, the students from all the 5 major clans are doing well. And among them, the most noteworthy student is Soyeon-yu. And we see she is instructing her party, with ordering tanks to hold the front line and range damage dealers to hold the monsters from the sides. The monsters begins attack the front lines, and Soyeon orders them to not let them break through it. The range damage dealers attack the monsters from behind. And lastly, Soyeon jumps in and finishes them off. Sang-yeol finds her quite impressive, noting that she is using a textbook strategy. And she has clearly distributed roles to her teammates, and took action to earn points herself, and she formed the party with mid-tier members to ensure they could at least clear the dungeon. And he believes that if she keeps this up, it's just a matter of time before she gets back to the top ranks. Since if it weren't for Ji-hyuk at the entrance ceremony, her grades wouldn't have been sullied at all. Speaking of which, he decides to check on how he is doing. But the system shows no results, which surprises him, as it can find all the information about students currently inside the dungeon. And just then, he realizes something, and instead opens up the clear list. And we see that he has already cleared the dungeon, without a party at that. And in 23 minutes and 32 seconds, while he knew that he gave an impressive performance at the entrance ceremony, but this clear time is impossible for a 17-year-old, and so he decides to look at the recording. And as he plays the recording, we see Ji-hyuk standing in front of the dungeon all alone with a sword in his hand. A large group of monsters confronts him, and he simply stretches himself a bit and rushes off towards them. He uses a straight lunge on the monsters in front, completely blowing their faces off, while yelling, out. The monster sticking on the ceiling gets slashed in half, as he again yells, Jungle Goblin, out. He now encounters 2 huge goblins, and as they attack him, he easily dodges. He appears on their side, and slices both of their head off in one strike. Meanwhile, Sang-yeol along with other instructors are watching in shock, as Ji-hyuk keeps taking out monsters while yelling, out. He then encounters a huge monster wearing armor, and Sang-yeol notes that it was made specifically for the midterm exam. It's been upgraded to match the ideal party size of 8. And as it tries to attack Ji-hyuk, he simply counters with a straight lunge on his body, and easily defeats him. Seeing this, Sang-yeol sighs, thinking that it looks like the first place is already decided, and it would be going to Ji-hyuk Kim. Now fast forward to after clearing the dungeon, everyone is out. And with this, the midterm exams finishes. Now at Professor's Lounge, Eigen seems to be looking at the midterm results, and the results seems quite surprising to him. We go back to when he was talking to Sang-yeol about them, saying that he is not sure if he can say that they are as expected, but Ji-hyuk Kim secured first place by a mile. And Sang-yeol says that it's not entirely as they expected it to be. They figured he would get first place, but they never thought that he would solo the dungeon without any injuries. And if he continues to grow like this, and enters the industry, then he believes that he might even reclaim the title of the One or Korea. Eigen replies, if the title, the One, given to the world's strongest contractor, and Sankyol agrees. Though he also says that maybe it's just has been a while since they had so many prodigies gathered in one class, so perhaps he is getting carried away. Eigen then says that there is one more unexpected turn of event in this exam, and Sankyol replies that it's Aaron Choi. The time that Juyeok achieved is already unbelievable, but he didn't expect her to surpass Suyeon and secure the second place. You don't know what gotten into her, but she also challenged the dungeon solo. It took her quite a while, and she took a lot of hits, but she cleared it. He knew that she was a quiet and hard-working student, but he never thought that she would be able to clear a dungeon solo. And if this exam focused on teamwork, Suyeon would have definitely scored higher. But since it was evaluated primarily based on the contribution to the raid, Juyeok and Aaron received higher scores. But even with these results, Sankyol doesn't recommend other students to try these methods, because it's definitely something that regular students should not attempt, and Eigen agrees. Back to the present, Eigen thinks that the Aaron he knew when he was an executive in Choi Clan was just a model student who diligently practiced her swordplay. And it makes him wonder, where did she got the idea of soloing the dungeon, though he gets an idea that perhaps it's because of Juyeok. But he quickly puts that thought away, thinking of it as stupid, and decides to instead prepare for the great announcement. Now on the next day, the results are published on the notice board in the school, with all the students looking at it. Rockdale seems really pissed about Juyeok again getting first place, and asks Yuria if Dezera is in Korea right now, and she affirms. And so, he decides to go and meet him right now, and tells her to get ready to go off campus. Now it's Seoul, Jamsil. Rockdale and Yuria seems to be entering a fancy restaurant there. And Dezera is also there, who greets Rockdale, saying that it has been a while. A bit later, and they have ordered some food, and Dezera seems to be eating like a wild animal, seeing which weirds out Rockdale. And now, Dezera finally asks Rockdale about the guy that he wants him to deal with, Juyeok. Who is he asks. Rockdale replies, he is no one special, he is just a first year from an orphanage, and doesn't even have anyone backing him. And he made a fool out of him, so he needs Dezera to make him pay for that. Dezera, with a sharp glare, asks if he can kill him, and Rockdale replies, it's up to him to decide. Though Dezera adds that this time he would need to set a stage properly, unlike last time, and Rockdale is confused what Dezera is talking about. Dezera points his finger at Yuria, asking him to remember when he wanted Yuria, because of which he had to fight with the Palais clan. Perhaps it was because the Palais clan wasn't remarkable, but the fact that he killed them all has not really spread, hearing which makes Yuria tremble in fear. Dezera continues that people at Valhalla are a different story, as even he cannot get inside and cause up trouble. And so, Rockdale understands, and tells him that he would set a perfect stage for him, so he won't need to worry about that. And he replies to make sure to prepare a nice reward as well. Now a week later, Juyeok seems to have put another outing request. Varche asks if he hasn't gone off the campus once before as well, and Juyeok replies, he has, but they are giving him another outing. Varche replies that he remembers hearing that they give an extra outing after a big exam, perhaps this is it, and Juyeok agrees, saying it is why he don't want to waste this opportunity, so he is going to look for the rest of his secret warehouse. And Varche asks where does he plan to go, and we switch scenes to Suwon. And Juyeok seems to be walking in the forest, noting that it should be around in this area. Suddenly, someone calls him out, and it's Dezera, who grins like a maniac, as he tells Juyeok that it's nice to meet him. We switch scenes to Market, District 7. The Black Cat seems to be looking over the city from his building. He sighs, and suddenly gets a notification. It's from his guardian Constellation, who is asking, when will that ring arrive? And he replies that it's on the way. It would arrive through the portal after going through the normal procedures. The guardian Constellation then spams the chat that she is reaching her limit. Seeing this, Black Cat gets quite nervous, as he wonders what is going on. He has been keeping an eye on the relics from the End era on the instruction from the former Black Cat, but this is the first time that he is seeing this reaction from the Constellation. And suddenly, through the portal, a briefcase arrives. And it seems to be the ring, seeing which, the Black Cat says that it should quiet her down a bit after he gives it to her. He opens up the box and we see the ring with mana residue on it. And so, he informs the Lord Constellation that the ring has arrived, but he doesn't hear any response from her, and once again tries calling out to her in confusion. And suddenly, she spams the notification window with the message that he has arrived, seeing which shocks the black cat. Now back to Juhyok, who is facing off against Dezera. He asks for Dezera's identity and he replies that he really doesn't need to know. And so, Juhyok replies that he is assuming that he wants something from him, and Dezera affirms, as why else would he bother coming all the way to the top of a mountain? Juhyok, with a blank expression, asks if it has to do something related to getting rid of him, and Dezera commends for being quick on the uptake. Juhyok removes his bag, telling him, not really, as anyone can figure that much out, because it's written all over Dezera's face. Hearing which pisses him off, as he gets ready to attack, telling him if he really thinks that he is hot shit because he is at the top of his class, and try to swing a punch at him, while telling Juhyok to not disappoint him. But Juhyok easily dodges, and his fist ends up hitting a tree, and the force from his punch knocks down the tree. Dezera tells him that he got quite lucky, because if he hadn't dodged that, he would have been dead in one hit, and Juhyok replies that he dodged it because it was too slow. Though, he notes that Dezera definitely has power, and that he is on par with Seehyok, perhaps even stronger. And so, he believes that it's still dangerous for him to block punches like that in his current body, which makes dealing with him quite simple. Juhyok quickly runs away in the forest, and Dezera gives him chase while smirking and asking if he is trying to run away, and that if this is the best decision that he could make on his part, though he would have been beaten to death if he didn't. But still, running away from him isn't an option, or so he believes as he charges up an attack. But Juhyok suddenly stops and turns towards him, with his fist already close to his face, as he mockingly asks Dezera if he fights with his mouth. Dezera is incredibly surprised as he wonders, when did he even got so close? He couldn't even notice anything until he was right in front of him. And as the punch connects, Dezera is sent flying and crashes onto the ground. And as he looks again, Juhyok is already on his next move and tries to stomp his head, but Dezera rolls over to dodge. And the force from his stomp causes the ground to crack, making him nervous. And so, Juhyok mocks him by saying that it seems he got lucky. It pisses Dezera off, as he questioned Juhyok, who is he really? And Juhyok replies that he thought Dezera already knew, since he already knew that he was a top student from Valhalla. Meanwhile, Dezera is in disbelief of his power, as he wonders what kind of elixirs he took to be like this. We now get a flashback from Dezera's past. He was apparently from a branch family of the Bentrick clan, and his parents tried to use his gift to raise their status, even if a little bit, and his gift was his innate compatibility with elixirs. He was able to digest elixirs that were given to him without any issue, and his parents fed him elixirs worth hundreds of billions per bottle. And by the age of 16, he was stronger than an adult, and his parents wanted to use him to gain recognition within the clan. But he didn't want it to live according to their wishes, as we see that he killed his parents soon after. It's because he had overwhelming power, he questioned himself. Why would he care about clan's recognition? But he grew to be a thorn on their side, and so the vice head of the clan, who thought herself as the head, banished him. But he didn't care at all. He could solve any financial issue with jobs from the underground world, and he was free to do whatever he wanted without any constraints of the clan. So when Roktal made this request of him, the money did play a part in his accepting it, but his interest in Juhyok Kim played an even greater role. He secured first place in the Valhalla entrance exam scramble, and he heard that he had even cussed out the guild's scouting agents and drove them all away. So he imagined how fun his new supposed toy would be, and felt light-hearted when planning how to deal with him. But right now, the only question in his mind is, how the hell is Juhyok so strong? And so he calls out to him and asks what kind of elixirs he took, because he don't know of any elixirs that an orphan like Juhyok can afford. Juhyok smirks hearing that, and starts laughing out loud when hearing that he used elixirs, and tells him that he was wondering what he would say, but he didn't expected him to be a druggie. Dezera starts to get pissed and asks if he is saying that he is this strong without any elixirs, and Juhyok replies he got stronger through consistent training and exercise, and tells him that while he did compare him to Seehyok in his head, it feels disrespectful to compare a natural-born musclehead like him to someone like Dezera. And so Dezera gets really pissed, thinking that he is leaving him no choice, and starts to take out a weapon, thinking that this power is not supposed to be used in a situation like this, but he has no choice. And when he takes out that dagger, we see him surrounded by a dark mana. Jiyak takes notice of that mana as well, while Dezera comments that he can feel power rising up inside him. But while he is in middle of his cool little speech, Jiyak is already up close to his face and knees him right on his face, while mocking him for being a complete knobhead, asking if he really thought that he would give him a chance to transform, as he gets sent crashing to a tree behind. And before he can recover, Jiyak once again lands a solid punch right on his face. And we see Dezera is about to pass out, but Jiyak grabs his hair and tells him wait, telling him that he cannot just pass out yet, especially since he has taken so many elixirs, since if he were just picking a fight, he would have stopped here, but since he confidently declared that he was going to get rid of Jiyak, he cannot let it slide. And besides that, he also have some questions to ask him. But for now, Jiyak makes sure to make him eat his fists, as Dezera gets scared and requests him to wait. Now we switch scenes to Valhalla dormitory at Rockdale's room. He is waiting and thinking that by now, Dezera would have dealt with Jiyak, and knowing his personality, he probably killed him. Dealing with a dead body is a hassle, but at least it's not on the school grounds, and he didn't expect Jiyak to go off campus at such a perfect time. And so, he seems to be in a quite good mood, and asks Yuria to brew him a cup of coffee. And so, his phone rings, and upon seeing it's Dezera, he gets really excited and grins. He picks the call up and asks if he took care of him, but he doesn't hear anything back. He again tries to speak up, but this time he hears loud screaming coming over from the other side, hearing which makes him nervous. He hears Juyak's voice, who tells Rockdale that he probably has no idea what Dezera is trying to say, isn't it? It's because he dislocated his jaw, hearing which Rockdale starts sweating bullets. Dezera tries to speak up, but only broken sound comes out, and so Juyak tells Rockdale that he will translate this to him, saying that Dezera wants 2 incense sticks at his funeral, so he should make sure to remember that, and Rockdale gets really scared after all this. Juyak tries to call him out again, since he didn't receive any response, but Rockdale cuts the call on him, though Juyak ends up calling him rude for that. And now, he glances at Dezera and wonders what should he do with him, as he lays there unconscious. Back to Rockdale, we see Yuria has made him the tea, and tells him that his tea is ready, though he looks quite serious, and doesn't give any response, so Yuria once again tries telling him that his tea is ready, only for him to shout at her, to put it on the table and get lost. Which she does, while Rockdale shakes his knee in anxiousness and sweats hard thinking about Juyak Kim. He never thought that he would actually beat both Lyric and Dezera, and it makes him wonder, what should he do now? How can he destroy him? And on top of that, he now also knows that Rockdale is the one behind it all, which makes him wonder if Dezera was the one who told him. And he realizes that at this rate, it's only a matter of time till the news reaches the Bentrick family, making the situation go completely out of hand. But suddenly, he gets a thought, thinking that it might not actually be a big deal, since after all, he is from a lowly background, so he won't be able to report anything. But regardless of that, he decides to lay low for a while, and just keep an eye on Juyak's movements. Back to Juyak, Varche asks him if he is going to leave that guy laying there, and he replies that he would report him later when the time comes. But for now, he has gathered enough information, and there is nothing more to do. Varche asks if couldn't he just kill him, and Juyak replies he would have back in the day, but at the moment, the idea makes him feel uneasy, and he is not Hyun-Oh Kim anymore. He is right now the high schooler, Juyak Kim, which Varche agrees with. Though, he does adds that there is something that is bothering him, and Juyak asks, what is it? And he replies, it's the mana that Dezera was emitting earlier. For some reason, it felt strangely familiar to him, and Juyak questions about it, and Varche replies, if he had emitted a little more of it, he could have figured it out for sure, but he believes that he has definitely sensed a mana like that before. And he asks Juyak if he didn't felt anything, and he replies, not really, as that dark mana was used by all sorts of monsters 300 years ago after all. And it makes Varche take a jab at Juyak by saying that perhaps he is not that skilled at distinguishing people's mana, so he supposed that it does require a certain finesse, which pisses of Juyak, as he tells him to shut up. And questions that could it be the power related to that blade from the back he was talking about, and Varche replies, perhaps. And so, we go back in time a bit when he was interrogating Dezera, as he tries to ask him who put him up to this, and he couldn't answer due to the broken jaw. And Juyak scratches his head, realizing that he just dislocated his jaw earlier, so he cannot speak. And so, he puts his fingers in his mouth, telling him it would hurt him a bit, and fixes his jaw back. And with that, he once again asks Dezera, who gave him the order to do this. But Dezera doesn't speak up, making Juyeok sigh in annoyance. And so he gets down again, saying that he fixed his broken jaw so he could hear him answer. So does he really think that keeping quiet will get him anywhere, as he starts squeezing his fingers? Dezera watches in shock, asking, why is he holding his finger? And Juyeok grins and breaks his fingers, causing Dezera to scream in pain. And so, Juyeok tells him that he should have answered his question quickly, so he should spit it now, before he breaks the rest of his fingers. And with that, Dezera finally reveals that Rockdil Bentrick sent him, and from that, Juyeok remembers that it must be that kid who picked on him before, though he did thought it might be the case. And so now, he questions, who is he to accept the request from that brat? Since he don't like a Valhalla student, so who is he affiliated with? Dezera smirks hearing that, saying that he will find out eventually, and Juyeok replies, that seems like 2 fingers wasn't enough, hearing which scares him. And so, he reveals that he is Dezera of the greatest race, and he is like a mercenary doing whatever work he gets paid for. Hearing which, Juyeok thinks that he has heard of this greatest race somewhere before, but he calls Dezera a self-indulgent thug instead of a mercenary. Dezera asks if they look like just some kind of trash to him, and that Juyeok just got lucky, the constellation that the greatest race serves as blade from the back, and he's also a contractor with that constellation, and believes that if he had 30 more seconds to gather his mana, then the results of the fight would have been different. And Juyeok tells him that he sure knows how to run his mouth, and he would have let him be, if he just told him his affiliation and shut up. And so, Juyeok once again puts his finger in his mouth, telling him that he is better off not being able to talk, and once again breaks his jaw, causing him to scream in pain. Back to Juyeok. It's evening now, and he seems to be searching information on the greatest race, and Juyeok finally remembers that he heard that name. They're a group of wickets. But it pisses him off a lot that he wasn't able to find his secret warehouse, and that brat Rockdil keeps trying to kill him from behind. And so, as he is wondering how can he screw him over, he gets an idea, thinking that modern problems requires modern solutions. First of all, he has recorded all of Dezera's confession, and now he needs to find a place to expose all of this. We switch scenes to Lilia, who has received a call from Juyeok. She excitedly picks up the call and asks if he finally decided to work as her assistant, but Juyeok once again rejects and asks if she happens to know any journalists. Fast forward, and we see a news headline that there was an attempted murder of a Valhalla student from the Bentrick clan. On the forums, there was more information on the attack and how it went by, including many supportive comments for Juyeok. And seeing this, Juyeok calls it modern warfare. Varche speaks up that for a person from over 300 years ago, he has adapted to the current culture very well, and Juyeok replies that at first, he did had a hard time right after reincarnation, but he focused on analyzing the trends by going on forums and watching the news. Thanks to which, he learned how to deal with people, though he still feels like that something is missing, and Varche asks him, what does he mean? Juyeok replies that he was only trying to screw over Rockdil, but all the journalists rushed in, and now the entire Bentrick clan is being dogpiled. But regardless, he realizes that the journalist that Lilia introduced to him was a pretty big deal, as he didn't expect things to escalate to this level. We now switch scenes to the Bentrick clan press conference, where Adelia seems to be to respond to the media. She opens up her statement with offering their deepest apologies to the Valhalla student who was attacked, in the following statement, which is going to be official stance of the Bentrick clan on this matter. She states that this incident was solely carried out by Dezera, who has been banished from their clan. And in the voice recording, the victim claimed to have made Dezera say that Rockdil Bentrick gave the order, but they have directly obtained evidence that this was a lie that was made up to try and escape the situation at the time. And so, she believes that this incident has no relation to the Bentrick clan, but since a former Bentrick clan member is involved in this incident, they believe that it's their moral responsibility to make amends. And so, as the head of the Bentrick clan, she plans to meet him personally to apologize to him. And regarding Rockdil Bentrick, who is attending Valhalla Academy, even though he was not directly involved in this incident, they believe that he may have indirect connections with the Wickets. And so, they plan to bring him back home and conduct an intensive internal investigation, and the prosecutors have also announced an investigation on their clan, so they would cooperate fully to ensure that there is no reasonable doubt left. And with this, she greets the press and leaves, while the media tries to ask her questions. Seeing this conference, Rockdale is nervous and sweating bullets. And suddenly, he gets a call from his father, and when he picks up, he wonders what he is going to say, and nervously greets him. And his father orders him to come back to England for a while. And apparently, he also informs him that this is the clan head's order, and so he agreed to do so without being able to say anything back. He is in quite the rage and fear after the call, while Yuria looks towards him with a blank expression as usual. Now on the next day, Dezera, who is captured, gets asked by the media about what happened, and he replies that Bintrick clan is correct. He did act it alone. Seeing this, Juiok is a bit surprised as he wonders if they are cutting off the tail, stating that he really don't like the whole lot of them. But regardless, he wonders, why will the clan head come to apologize to him in person, as it would be quite awkward for him. He then gets near teacher's office and stops and thinks that since the class ended early, so maybe he should stop by and see her, since he also got a favor to ask from her. And so, he again meets up with Lilia, who looks at him with excitement, and Juiok rejects her without her not even saying anything. She stands up in disappointment, saying that she haven't even said a thing, and Juiok replies that she was going to ask him to be her assistant. Anyone would know that. And so, she pouts and sits back down, asking, why did he came to see her then, since she is a busy woman? And once again suddenly stands up, asking if he is asking her out on a date, and Juiok replies, in her dreams probably. Which prompts Lilia to tell him that he is starting to get a bit too disrespectful now, and Juiok replies that he have not been respectful to her in a good while now, which she states is a fair argument. But regardless, Juiok tells her that he isn't here for all this. He wanted to thank her for introducing him to the reporter. And so, he thought that he would give her some information on monster hunting, and she gets excited hearing that. Juiok replies, but in return, could she help him get an extra outing this weekend? He would give her a little more information, and she agrees to do that quickly, saying that if becomes her assistant, he can take a leave every day, and he once again rejects her offer. Now we switch scenes to the North Pacific Ocean, on prisoner transport ship. And in one of the onboard cells, we see Dezera is locked up, who didn't expect it to be transported by a ship, and realizes that perhaps he is being transported to the prison tower, which is a prison in the middle of the North Pacific Ocean. The S-rank constellation, Glory of Non-Possession, created this whole prison himself, and this prison has a specialty that it can turn any contractor into an ordinary human being. Though, regardless of it, he smiles thinking that it doesn't matter. Because the Bintrick clan has offered to reduce his sentence to 5 years, as long as he keeps his mouth shut and deny that Rockdale was involved, and to his surprise it was actually reduced. And so, he believes that he would just have to rot in the prison for 5 years and then he would be free again. But suddenly, he hears a voice saying that it's a shame, and he gets nervous and looks around, asking, who was that? But before he can react, someone slits his throat and kills him. Dezera coughs and tries to breathe, but the blood starts gushing out of his throat, and he seems to be not dead yet, even after this. And there seems to be a shadowy figure standing beside him with a knife in his hand, as Dezera glances towards him. His eyes glows red, as he tells Dezera to die, while referring to him as fool, stating that the greatest race doesn't need a clown like him, with a cold voice. Dezera tries to speak up, but starts to lose consciousness instead, and after losing too much blood, he finally falls down on the ground, getting a brutal death. And the shadowy figure simply watches over him and starts to disappear like a mist right as he finishes up his job. Now fast forward to night, at the Bintrick Manor. We see Adelia, who is visibly very angry, confronting Rockdale, and along with him is his father, Ethan Bintrick, who are both nervously standing in front of him, not knowing what she is about to say. She coldly calls out to Rockdale first, and he acknowledges her call while sweating hard and with a nervous yes. She questions him, what is he going to do about this? And Rockdale doesn't understand what is she trying to say, as he replies, pardon? But he quickly realizes what she means, and both Ethan and Rockdale bows down in front of him, while Rockdale frantically apologizes to her for this incident. Adelia coldly asks if this is all that he have to say. Does he really think that this can be resolved with an apology? And Rockdale isn't able to say back anything and simply stays silent. Adelia asks to explain to her in detail what exactly happened, and he agrees to do so. A bit later, and Rockdale has seemingly explained her everything, and she confirms once again that he tried to bring Juhyuk Kim into this because he thought that it would please her, and he nervously agrees with it. Suddenly, Adelia gets pissed off with that explanation as she clenches her fist tightly, asking, did he really think that she would buy that, as her aura starts to shake things around them, with their guardian constellation having a vision behind her. She gets up from her chair, telling Rockdale that while he is claiming that he acted to defend the Bentrick clan's name, but wasn't all he did because of his own personal pride? And because of all that, as a result, the Bentrick clan had to suffer and the clan's honor has really been tarnished. And so she glares at him with anger, asking him once again, what is he going to do about it? And Rockdale gets scared as his eyes widens, and he is hesitant to give an answer to her. He quickly kneels down in front of her, stating that he would do anything to restore the Bentrick clan's honor that he lost. But Adelia isn't buying that, as she asks, what is he even talking about? And tells him that the only way to recover their honor is by banishing him, which scares him to a large degree. Ethan speaks up, as he is surprised by hearing that, and tries to argue that it's too harsh of a punishment for him. But Adelia replies, then would he like to be banished instead of his son then? Which Ethan clearly doesn't want, due to which he hesitates to give her an answer. Adelia, while standing in front of Rockdale, thinks that while she would really want to either kill him or banish him immediately, but doing that would simply prove that Dezera was indeed acting on Rockdale's request. And due to being left without any option in this scenario, she grits her teeth angrily, being stuck with such poor choices. And with that, she once again calls out to Rockdale, who gets up hearing that. And Adelia seems to have taken her decision, as she tells Rockdale that she won't be banishing him just yet, and orders him to return to Valhalla and keep his mouth shut. And she plans to decide what to do with him after she has met up with Juhyuk Kim. Rockdale once again kneels on the ground and thanks her nervously for this. Meanwhile, Adelia orders Ethan to make sure to keep a close watch on his vacuous son, because now, his fate will also be decided based on his son's actions, and so he agrees to do it. She then orders them both to take their leave, and they both thank her while leaving. Now, while walking down in the hallway, Ethan tells Rockdale that he needs to behave himself this time, and to not try anything stupid. But Rockdale has IQ of a room temperature, and so he asks his father if he not heard what Adelia told them, that he will be banished sooner or later. But, since the media is watching them closely right now, she has her hands tied and is unable to do anything. But when things starts to quiet down again, she will definitely kick his ass out of the clan without a second thought. But his dumbass once again plans for something, and tells his father that he got to do something before that, since he has no other options left. And he also tries to rope his father in his schemes, telling him that he needs to help him as well in this, who seems nervous about it. But regardless, he tells him to keep quiet about it, and he agrees. Now a few days later, at Valhalla Academy, at the meeting room, Eigen seems to be speaking to Juhyuk that the Bentrick clan head would be paying a visit to Valhalla soon, as she would like to personally apologize to Juhyuk. But Juhyuk doesn't seem to want to meet her, as he tells Eigen that he don't have any business with the clan head, and she even said at the press conference that her clan had nothing to do with this incident. Eigen replies that she did said that, but she also said that it is her moral duty to offer Juhyuk an apology in person, so she is coming all the way to Korea just for this. This all makes Juhyuk wonder if she is coming here because the punishment that Rockdale supposed to get was handled within the Bentrick clan, meaning she feels that there is nothing for her to hide. This thing seems to annoy Juhyuk a lot, as he states that he really does not want to do it. Eigen speaks up, saying that, to be honest, both him and instructor Sankyo Lee are quite uncomfortable about this whole situation as well. Because regardless of whatever circumstances there was, a student of Valhalla was attacked, and despite the attacker admitting that Rockdale ordered the attack, and even with his recording of all of his statements, they are protecting him as a clan member, and are doing everything they can in their power to cover up this incident. But even then, in terms of student protection, it is only right that they expel Rockdale and refuse the Bentrick clan head for all of it. But the Bentrick clan has recently donated a large sum of money to their school. And since most of their financial resources come from donations by these large clans, their hands are tied as well. And so the school also wants to quietly sweep this whole matter under the rug. And after hearing all of this, Juhyuk makes his decision, understanding their situation and agrees to talk to the clan head. And hearing him say this, Eigen is left quite surprised, as he comments that Juyeok is reacting normally to all this, though Juyeok doesn't quite understand what is Eigen trying to say by that. Suddenly, they get a knock on the door, and Eigen, upon hearing that, tells Juyeok that it must be her, and tells her that she may come in. And so, he also gets up and starts to leave, telling Juyeok to have a good chat with her, which he agrees to do. And we see Adelia stepping inside the room, and Eigen goes on to the door and bows to pay his respect to her, and she nods in response. And Eigen asks her to take her time, and Adelia thanks them for their hospitality. And now, she finally stands face to face with Juyeok and greets him by saying that it's nice meeting him, and introduces herself as the head of the Bin Trick clan, Adelia Bin Trick. And Juyeok gives off a dry response and also greets her, saying that it's nice to meet her as well.